And so this one, I think that it might be for you, or it might be for someone that you know. Dear Dawn, I won't beat around the bush with a long story. I married the wrong person. He isn't physically abusive. He loves me, but he's lazy. Not your typical lazy. I mean, he's sloppy, dyes his hair and gets it on the carpet, never does any work around the house, and we now sleep in separate bedrooms. It got so bad that I had the carpets cleaned and proceeded to put plastic down on all the areas he frequents. I don't plan on getting a divorce, but I wanted to know, how do I live in a home with someone who has bad energy when I know my energy and awareness and the importance of both are my priority? Okay, so it is common to marry someone that you are not yoked to. The reality, and it's something that I actually learned and really just took in a couple of days ago, when I was having a conversation with a friend of mine named Linnell. We were having a conversation and he said, people are never going to be equally yoked to each other because we're all different people. And so, you know, there's never going to be someone who is like perfect for you, but the reality is that there will be someone who you'll love enough through their imperfections. And that is really, 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 really the truth. Even though you can pick your spouse and you may feel that you've picked the wrong one, there are certain things that you can do to make sure that your energy stays good, even if you're in a house where the energy is like totally, okay, so number one, of course, I'm always going to recommend that you burn incense. I'm always going to recommend that you burn sage. I'm always going to recommend that you have as much light as possible in your house. Why? Because sometimes the enemy likes to attack you through other people. And I've said it before and I will say it again. Sometimes you wake up and you say, who in the bleep am I laying next to? Some of the things that you mentioned here, I would want to question, were these things happening before you guys said I do? Because normally what happens is that we love someone so much that we excuse their bad behavior, and then when it comes time to hold them accountable for their bad behavior, you've excused that bad behavior for so long, so when it comes time for you to put your foot down, the other person is looking at you like, you've been letting me do this for years and years and years. So if your energy, right, and the awareness of your energy are like your utmost importance, and you're saying you guys are already sleeping in separate bedrooms, my question is, are you friends with your husband? Because I have friends that I wouldn't necessarily say I would agree with everything they do, and they probably don't agree with everything that I do. But at the end of the day, we're very good friends and we come to a mutual understanding. I would ask you, you know, you say that your husband's not your typical lazy, he's sloppy, doesn't do any work around the house. Was he like that before you married him? You know, sometimes we marry people and then we want to start putting our foot down, and it's like, if you didn't do it in the dating stage, why do you assume that someone is going to take on a different stance to how they've been acting? That's the thing. You can't change someone, right? In that dating stage is when you're supposed to be looking at different things that they do and say, oh, well, can I live with this? Can I not live with this? I think that you've went a step in the right direction if you're sleeping in a separate bedroom. It can't be so bad because you're not screaming divorce. You're saying that he's not physically abusive and you know that he loves you, but he's lazy. Well, here's the reality. Some men aren't taught how to be a man from the ages of 8 and 18. Some men just aren't taught that. And so what happens is that you end up getting with someone who is a man boy. And a man boy is someone who in age is technically a man, but in mind is still a little boy. And that may be what you're married to. And if you're married to someone like that, and you don't believe in divorce, and you do believe in working things out, and you are aware that this person has negative energy while you have positive energy, one of the things that I would not do is I would not, and someone told me this a long time ago, and it still rings true in my mind today. Don't try to reason with crazy. Don't try to reason with crazy. And at any given time, anybody can turn crazy. Okay? We're all really one incident away from being crazy ourselves. You must not know about me. You must not know about me. I can have a life in a minute, and a back in a minute, baby. Trust me. If you don't plan on getting a divorce, I would begin to remember the things that led me down the aisle with this person. Now, I'm not talking about false things. I'm talking about things, and I'm not talking about, oh, well, he did this while we were dating, and now that we're married, he doesn't do that. The reality is that you probably don't do some of the stuff that you were doing when you guys were dating, right? Because if you were taking care of him while you guys were dating, and now you're married and you have different expectations or standards for how he should be acting because you're married, then you're being different too. And you have to really look at that. Sometimes we don't look at the fact that we change as much as somebody else has changed. If you're growing and the other person is not growing, right, then they're dying while you're growing. Not equally yoked. But if you're with someone and you say, I love you for who you are, whoever that is, right, and the person is not being emotionally abusive, physically abusive, verbally abusive, right, if the person is not doing this to you, but you find yourself yelling or screaming or getting so upset, you have to ask yourself, why am I so upset? You already sleep in a different room. You say you've already put down plastic. What more do you want from the person? Does the person pay rent? Do they help with the mortgage? Do they do anything? If your answer is yes, well, he does give money for this, or yes, he does. If you're looking for the perfect person, you won't find that perfect person, right? And if you're telling me straight out, I don't plan on getting a divorce, then the importance of your energy is your priority, right? So let's say that your husband is in one room and he wants to argue. You just simply leave and go to another room. It really is that simple. If your husband wants to raise his voice, you don't raise your voice back. People cannot argue where there is no audience. People cannot fight where there is not an active participant with them. People cannot do things to you, with you, through you, without your permission. And you love the person enough to get married. You love the person enough to tell me that you don't plan to get divorced. So then your focus should not be on the things that your husband is not doing to make your household complete, and you should be focusing on the things that you should be doing in order to make your household complete. Your husband, he can't make your household complete if you're not already complete. And if he was already doing these same things before you got married, you cannot tell him to the left, to the left. You must not know about me. You must not know about me. I can have a life. Sometimes we give up at the easiest places, right? We're giving up at the battle when there's a whole war around us. And if you fire everybody in your life, right, during these battles, in the end, you're losing the whole war, right? And maybe the companionship is worth salvaging when you look at the fact that you can't change anything that this person is doing the same way they can't change anything that you're doing. Their growth may not be the same as your growth, but if you guys have separate rooms to be in, that means that you have control over the energy in the room that you're in. And you have control over the energy that you choose to set forth in any situation. So let's say that your husband spills something on the floor and you know it pisses you off. Here's just another chance for you to breathe and say to yourself, I'm so glad I put that plastic down. Let's say that your husband dyes his hair and it happens to fall on the plastic that you already put down. What do you really have to complain about? Because he's done it so many times that you know that it's going to happen, and therefore you've put plastic down. You cannot have bad thoughts and bad energy around someone else's actions without your permission. Oftentimes we have a yeah, there are no buts. You can take the time to say, woo, thank God for that plastic, and wipe the plastic clean. Or you can chastise an adult, which normally doesn't yield a positive response. I don't know anybody that chastises another adult, especially a spouse, and gets a positive response out of it. No one. So I don't know if you would be the first person to get that, but because I don't know anyone that gets a positive response from chastising their spouse, I would say, get some incense, get some sage, burn it, always be pleasant, and remember, you cannot reason with crazy.